Hey YouTube, this is the Desk Scouter making another video, and today we're going to be replacing the alternator 2003 Jeep Liberty. Very simple. We have one mounting screw, two mounting screw, and three mounting screw holding this in place. We have one hot wiring connection here, one wiring harness. If we pinch these two tabs here, lift up this cap, with one connection here, and then we just have to get the serpentine belt off of the pulleys. So this is going to be a relatively easy repair. It requires three tools: 15 millimeter, 15 millimeter, 13 millimeter, 13 millimeter, and then on the tension pulley, a 15 millimeter socket and a handle long enough to get you some torque, because this is spring loaded right here, and I'll show you that in just a second. Some safety precautions. They do recommend when you work on the alternator or the starter that you pull the positive battery terminal off of the battery, because this is a direct connection to the battery, and if you have this hanging free and you start working and this happens to fall down and hit onto the chassis anywhere, it'll complete the circuit with the negative side or ground, and with the amperage of a battery, it means it becomes a spot welder, and you can spot weld the terminal to the chassis, and then of course it's a dead short across the battery and you have a battery meltdown. I am lazy. I'm not even going to try to hide it. I'm not going to disconnect it from the battery, but what I am going to do is when I take this connection off, I am going to go ahead and wrap it with some kind of insulator so that it doesn't touch and short the circuit. So with that being said, here is my 15 millimeter ratchet that I will put down here onto the tension wheel, and if you see, you can pull on that, see that, and get some slack in the cable. A little trick, right? A little physics here. Boy, you guys just love my jittery camera work. I put my ratchet in a pipe, right? And it gives me an awful long arm and an awful lot of torque. So when I put this back on here, one-handed, there we go, I have all this torque, and I can just pull that all the way over and just start lifting. You see how I've done that? Just pull that over, and see how all these belts just slack up on their own. And with enough slack, I reach down here and I pull the pulley off, and now I'm free to go ahead and start working on the mounting screws for the alternator. Now, you should always take a look at how the belt is wrapped before you disconnect it. And if you ever get confused, or you go to put it back and somehow you end up with slack and you're like, wow, that's not right, every car offers the belt routing guide somewhere under the hood. When Jeep, it's right up front, it shows you exactly how it looks, and you can get started on this. So here's what I'm going to do now. I am going to go ahead and pull out my 13 millimeter, change out my socket here, and if this were not 8 o'clock in the morning, I'd be out here with my air ratchets getting this done super fast, but nobody appreciates being woken up by the sound of an air ratchet, so we're going to do this all by hand. So here's the, and again, keep in mind, I'm now on the positive terminal, so if I short, even if I short this ratchet to the chassis, I'm completing the circuit. So if you're not going to be 100% careful, then I do recommend you disconnect the battery terminal. I'm all about making jobs as quick, simple, and uncomplicated as possible. So we're going to do things a little differently, right? So here we go. And that is on there. This is all plastic, so I'm okay here. And then I'll put that screw somewhere. I'm going to pinch these tabs here. wiggle this connection off, and I'm gonna need a second hand or second tool to get in there and get that. That's very tight for some reason. So let me do that, and then I'll be back with the camera, because otherwise you'll be staring at the sky. All right. So just want to show you this connector here that was giving me a hard time. There's really nothing to it. Here's just one tab here on the top. I hope we're focused. This one tab right here on the top. I'm touching with my finger. I just had to press that down and shimmy this connection off the back terminal here. There's what we have, and you should always inspect your terminals. Make sure there's no corrosion. Make sure there's nothing funky growing in there. Again, it's a hot lead. Be very careful. And I grabbed my ratchet, and I actually broke my mounting bolts loose while I had the use of both hands. Not very difficult at all. I'm going to get down here now and just finish taking these out. Some commentary as I do the work. Alternators come with a core charge, just like a battery does, just like a starter does. So I bought the replacement online. Another free advertisement here for Advanced Auto Parts. Only because they give me discounts when I buy online. They give everybody discounts when you buy online. So I saved 20% immediately. I have another whopping $15 coupon coming to me via email for my next, I don't know, $50 or $100 purchase, but that will get used. So the core charge, which was like $32 for the alternator, is included in my price, right? So if I buy my alternator first and then come and do the work, then I got to go back with the other alternator to get my $32 back. So the reason I'm rambling on is if you will go ahead and order your part and then take it off, and when you go in to pick up the parts, have your old one with you, they will credit you the core charge on site and save yourself a trip back to the auto parts store. So here we go. We've got 3 bolts. Now they're kind of self-explanatory because no two are the same, but I lay them out in the same order that I took them off. It just helps me to remember it. And now this is just sitting on here. You might need a screwdriver. Oh, there you go. I was going to say you might need a screwdriver to pry yours loose if it's been on there for a while. But other than that, wiggle, wiggle, wiggle like the electric slide. Another one-handed job. There we go. And the alternator is off, ready to go to the auto parts store. Just FYI, this died driving yesterday. I mean, literally just stopped. Jump started it because when I went to turn the ignition, it didn't do anything. It just tick, tick, tick. Told me I had a dead battery. They tested me. They said the battery was bad, so I replaced the battery yesterday, $130. Driving home last night, the battery light on the dashboard came back on. So unless I have some very odd power drain problem, and I don't have any aftermarket stereos or boom boxes or anything else wired in that should be sucking my electricity, I'm going to make the assumption that the only other part of the system that could be at fault is the alternator. When they did the battery test, they did what's called a full system test, and they saw the alternator output fluctuating, and the minimum wage guy at the counter convinced me that was because it was trying to charge the battery, and I should have known better because the output of an alternator should be steady. So anyhow, for another $100 and the safe and peace of mind, knowing that I have new parts, I'm just going to go ahead and swap the alternator out. And if that does not fix my electrical problem, then we'll be having an extended video, because now it gets into a wiring problem, which I really don't suspect. or else I wouldn't be doing this repair. Alright, so off to the auto parts store, and then we'll talk about reassembly. Okay, just got back with the new alternator, and I just sat it right in there. It fell right into place. And we're going to go ahead and just do our assembly in reverse. And we'll take our, make sure our screw holes line up properly, and you'll see that in my absence, since it's breezy, I was a little worried about this hot lead accidentally touching something it shouldn't. So I went ahead and I wrapped it with plastic. And in the meantime, I'm just sitting here. I always make sure you get all your threads started by hand. You never want to put something in and then torque down on it with the ratchet, or in some cases an air ratchet, and then you find out that you're cross threading and stripping. Never good, never good. I lay these things out in a way that I can figure out where the screws go, which one's which. Even though there's only 3 bolts in this assembly, I always go ahead and just lay them out in a certain way that I'm not going to be confused when it's time to put it all back together. So we will wiggle this around and find the mounting hole and tighten things up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop the camera. I'm going to finish assembly. I'm going to tighten these screws up. Obviously, I'll reconnect my connector here, this connector up top, and I'll turn the camera on when I put the belt back on. Sometimes people would like to see making sure that the belt's routed properly, because you see that it came off of other things like my power steering pump. Alright, I'll be back. Okay, so everything went back together like super fast. Just wanted to show you, not that you wouldn't figure this out on your own, but here on this bottom of this screw, there was a little tab. It fits down into this little plastic indent. No big deal. You would have figured it out. But I figured for the sake of being thorough, I'd include it. Clicked everything back on, plugged that in until that clicked, tightened all my screws. Now it's time to redo my serpentine belt. And again, here's the routing on the table on the front, and we see that it comes up from the flywheel, around the power steering pump, and up onto the alternator. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to go around this little bell housing, and we got to get over to here. So we got to come up with some slack, and I've already gone ahead and put my ratchet on. I'll fit my pipe over top of that and then pull. And look at that. Maybe this will work after all. Alright, I'll make sure that the belts went right back on without any problem. I hope the camera's showing that, I don't know. But then you're going to do a visual inspection and make sure the belt is in between the pulleys all the way around, because if it's off to the side, you may end up shredding your belt. But everything looks good. Actually here, I'm glad I checked this. Now, it may self-correct as soon as I turn the engine over, but I'm not going to take that chance. We're off just a little bit right there, so I'm going to go ahead and put some tension, or release some tension, and enough that I can just slip this belt back onto this bell housing as it should be. It didn't take much, but don't want anything bad to happen. Alright, so in and done. This was probably 20 minutes worth of repair at the most. I mean, it's so fast and easy. One of the reasons I love these Jeeps, they're so easy to work on. You can get to everything nice and easy. It's not like a front-wheel drive car where all of this is turned sideways and you can't get to anything. This is it. I hope... let's see, let's go through the prices here. $131 after core charge. Got a 15 or 20% off because I bought it online, so it puts me somewhere around about $110 for a repair. I was done in 15 to 20 minutes at the most. So if you're having this problem and you need to replace your alternator, don't be afraid to do it yourself. It's very simple. Very simple. Alright, thank you.